Good morning, Larry Parman. Hope you're having a great day. We thought we'd do something a little bit different today, and rather than take the time to type right out a message for you, we just decided to talk about it a little bit and share a couple of thoughts in two different blogs, if you will. The first one I want to talk to you about occurred this past week in Chicago. My son Scott and I were attending a conference, and we had the experience of meeting and listening to the most extraordinary young guy. And I thought I'd share a little bit about the story because I think there's a lesson there for all of us. First of all, I was raised in a small town in northwest Missouri, a town called Albany. I've actually written about it a little bit, and some of you are familiar with where Albany is and my background from being there. It's about 50 miles northeast of St. Joe. And if you're driving from Kansas City to Des Moines on I-35, there's a town about halfway between those two cities called Bethany. And Albany is a county seat town of about 1,800 people, located straight west of Bethany. Well, around Albany and Bethany and Gallatin, there's a town called Hamilton, Missouri. Now, some of you may know that Hamilton, Missouri was the birthplace of J.C. Penney. That's right, J.C. Penney. Now, I'm not sure J.C. Penney ever went back to Hamilton after he left, but there's J.C. Penney High School, and everything in and around Hamilton and throughout Caldwell County is related to J.C. Penney. So this is a story about a family living in California who found themselves down and out. Dad's a machinist, 7 children, medical issues, ended up having to take bankruptcy, and just needed a new location. Just wanted to uproot from California and move somewhere else. And they determined where they were going to live by looking at the map and almost like throwing darts on a wall. Picked a town, pointed a finger at this small community in northwest Missouri called Hamilton. I have a little bit of an affection for Hamilton because my uncle was once the high school football coach in Hamilton back in the 50s, that would be 1950s, and had some very successful teams, including a couple of conference championships. So I know quite a bit about Hamilton and its history. So this family, the Duttons, moved to Hamilton. And the speaker we heard at this program was one of the sons of this couple who moved their children to that location. So as Alan Doan was sharing the story about the family and the business that they have created, he walked onto the stage after listening to a line of speakers with their suits on, and some did not have ties on, but most did. And this was a fairly sophisticated, very sophisticated audience. The audience was dressed casually for the most part, but the speakers who came across the stage were put together, if you will. So up on the stage walks Alan Doan. Now, Alan is a young guy, probably 35, 38, somewhere in that range. And Alan stands about 6'6" high, tall, and has this big beard. And he walked up with this black shirt with crazy goofy prints on it, hanging over, hanging outside of his pants, a pair of just regular jeans or kind of farm khakis, if you will, and a pair of really ugly shoes. And so everybody's kind of looking like, okay, well, who's this guy and what's he going to talk about? So when I looked at the handout, the brochure, the program, I first just looked at the name. I thought, Alan Doan, I've heard that name before. Where have I heard that name? And then I looked at the name of the company, or the company under his name, and it said Missouri Star Quilting Company, I think. Missouri Star Quilting Company. Hamilton, Missouri. And the lights went on. I went, bingo, I know a little bit about this. So after the Doan family moved to Hamilton, Alan was homeschooled and ended up going to college at the University of Hawaii. And after that, took a job with, I think it was Cimitech, and had a great job, was traveling Boston, Chicago, living in different places, and really putting together his credentials in the IT space where he received his degree. And, you know, bright, sharp, young guy. Well, like so many people during the 2008 downfall, Alan received a call. I think he said he was on a sales call in Chicago or someplace, and received notice that every single person on his team, and as I recall, it was 200 or 300 people, were part of a massive layoff that included thousands. And so all of a sudden, this bright, aspiring young kid who grew up so poor in Hamilton, they had nothing, bankrupt out of California, and as Alan put it, we were so poor, we pooped in a bucket. So they had nothing. I mean, they were just scrimping by, they were on welfare, and just trying to make ends meet any way they could. While all this was going on, the mother, Jenny, had a skill. And from time to time, she would make quilts for people and get paid a little money for that. So now fast forward to 2008, Alan's out of a job, everybody in Hamilton's suffering. I don't know if you know much about small town America, even county seat towns. If those communities are not located on an interstate, they're going through some very, very difficult, hard times. When I grew up, Albany was a vibrant community, shops on all four sides of the square, beautiful courthouse in the middle. And now when you go back, two of the sides are basically vacant. Some of the buildings have fallen down because of disrepair, and it's just a much different community. They're all dying communities up there. And that's the demographic reality we all hate to watch happen. But that was also true of Hamilton. And so the Doans were struggling. And now Alan, this creative young guy, is trying to figure out what he wants to do in his future. And I guess in the family conversation, they get feedback from Mom that she's having pretty good luck selling some of these quilts. And long story short, and you should Google it yourself, and then go to the Forbes. Forbes actually wrote a story about it. Google the Forbes story about Missouri Quilting Company or Missouri Star Quilting Company. They decided, my gosh, Mom's got this skill set, and she's doing well, and she's actually generating money from this. I think we're in the quilting business. So Alan and his sister, who collaborated about this, came up with this vision and this plan. They get Mom into the quilting business. Mom becomes the star. Today, and I'll just fast forward because we're using a little bit of time here, but I really encourage you to find out about this story and the implications of the story. Because here's a down and out family with no hope, who discovered their own acres of diamonds, if you will, in their own kitchen, in their own home, through the skill set of the mother, Jenny. Now Jenny is a YouTube star, a YouTube sensation, and they have hundreds of thousands of people coming to Hamilton, Missouri every year to visit these now 14 quilting shops in Hamilton. And Alan recounted the story that all these people are coming in to visit, mostly ladies, but sometimes the guys come along, guys drive them up. And Alan said he walked outside one day and he noticed a whole parking lot full of men sitting in their cars or standing on the edge, leaning up against the car, kind of looking at their watch, going, what time, when's this going to end? So creatively, they took another one of the vacant stores and they built basically a man cave. And the man cave is called Man's Land, and inside Man's Land they have pool table, flat screen TVs to watch football games and so forth. And so they created an environment where the guys could go hang out and have some fun, get to know one another, while the ladies spent half their net worth buying quilts in Hamilton, Missouri. So there are a lot of lessons behind this. You know, the creativity and the vision of a young man and his sister, the willingness to take the skill set and develop it. Alan recounted the story about how even after when he talked to his mom, he said, Mom, can you create a tutorial of how you do this? And she said, of course, I can do that. What's a tutorial? And so they had to explain what all this meant. And it was really funny because Alan, who towers about 6'6", said they crudely were videoing this, recording what was going on, and showed the picture, had the camera focused on Mom, and then from his height of 6'6", he would literally bend over and move the camera slowly to a vertical position hovering right over the quilt so that they could show what Mom was doing with her hands below and then bring it back up. So he said he was just going up and down like this all the time. And then about 3 weeks or so after they started that, they started to say, hey, this is great, this is going to be good on YouTube. Mom breaks her leg. And literally breaks her leg, she's in the hospital. Alan, on the other hand, he's all tied into timelines and deadlines and commitments he's made. So he's at the hospital going, Mom, you got to get out of here. We've got videos to record, they're expecting them, and so forth. So about 3 days after Mom broke her leg, she's sitting in a wheelchair doing this again while Alan's doing this. A lot of lessons. Buying the first building, a vacant 5,000 square foot warehouse. And he said, doesn't take much to buy that. We paid $24,000 for it. And he said the first expenditure we had after that was to buy Mom a $48,000 machine to go in her $24,000 building. So it's a great story. The story about him searching out fulfillment systems and delivery systems and seeking counsel and observing Walmart, talking to them, talking to Amazon people about how all these things need to run for perfect delivery and so on and so forth, and how they set this whole electronic system up and built this warehouse, and when they flipped the switch for go, nothing worked, and how all that created chaos, and learning from that. And then I think the other important lesson, I'll close with this one, was after a few years, and they started this in 2009, today they're doing $40 million a year in sales. That's 40 million a year in sales in Hamilton, Missouri. So none of us as businessmen or as entrepreneurs should feel like we can't pursue an opportunity where we are. Right under our nose may rest our own acres of diamonds, and we may not be able to see it. It may be right there. So this is a great story. I encourage you to look further into it. It's inspirational. Everybody wondered in the first 5 minutes, well, who's this Alan Doan guy? And in about 15 minutes, he owned the audience. He was great. He was funny. He told great stories about the start and the setbacks they had and what they had to do to overcome it. And the whole purpose of doing it in the first place, as he said, was just to be damn sure that our mother had a place to live, so she wouldn't have to come and live with one of us in our basements, because our basements were always flooded and they were $20,000 homes, and we didn't want any of that going on. So again, a wonderful story. I think you'll enjoy finding out more about it. Google them, Missouri Star Quilting Company, I think it's called, or Missouri Quilting Company. You'll find out. They're easy to find, and that Forbes article in particular lays in more detail than even I've been able to share with you today. So what I would suggest is find out about that story, think about it, how it applies to you, how it applies to your team. In that town, they now employ over 500 people. The website says, I think 400, 450. They've grown since then. And Alan had to learn the lesson of realizing that the job of CEO of that company now was far beyond his skill sets, far beyond his capabilities, and even more important, far beyond his interests and his strengths. And so he had to fire himself. He said, I learned that yelling's not any good. Yelling won't motivate your people. I'm a big guy. I go around when things aren't done. I get on people. He said, not good. You know, I didn't have the skill set, so they brought in a CEO to take care of that and replace him. So now you know, even at such a young age, he's literally replaced himself as CEO, and that company continues to prosper. So, great story. We thoroughly enjoyed it. I think you will too. Hope you've enjoyed this vignette about them, about Alan Doan, his family, Jenny the star on YouTube, and the great business that can be built even in Hamilton, Missouri. Talk to you soon.